Hello everyone, this is Daniel and welcome to the 23rd part of this character modeling tutorial series. So today we'll do some more topology and taking a look, we have already, well, we might redo the helmet, but let's clear this for a second. The body is fine too. The cape, we'll look at this generally later. So these are the basic remaining groups that we have. So I hope we can finish some of these today. And we'll start with this one for now, as I think with the hair we don't actually have too much to do. It's actually quite low res already, and we might just brush it up a little bit and maybe add even a little bit more resolution instead of reducing. Anyway, we'll just focus on this for now. And we actually have a lot to work with already. Let's take a look. One thing I will do is I'll create a copy of both parts. So I'll select them both, Shift D, and let's just move them to a low resolution, low poly section here. And then I'll also remove the material just so that we have visibly something different. Should be easier to recognize. And I'll get started here. So this is just a cylinder with some detail, and I'll just go ahead and remove every second loop to reduce the detail here. We can just hit X and then edge loop. That will remove that. And we won't need these loops here as well. I'm just going in, basically removing all the loops that we don't need anymore, since this will be captured by a normal map. I'll remove this as well. We just need 2 here, maybe that's fine, and we'll go ahead and remove some more. Let's remove this one actually, and this one I'll scale up so that the silhouette is sort of correct. Let's quickly check the modifiers. We don't need the subdivision surface modifier on this one. The mirror will keep. So for the curve, I'll keep it quite as is basically, because I don't want to have any too visible polys showing here. But we have subdivision surface on this anyway, so it is already a reduced version of the previous one. Now I'll also remove these loops before the curvature, because we don't have subdivision surface again, so there's no need to have it. And that will pretty much be it. We're down to 100 or so verts, so that's pretty good. Let's apply the mirror modifier as well, and that's going to be this part. We could keep them separate actually. Let's actually do that. I was going to merge them together, but on second thought, I feel like, I mean, they're like not deforming objects. They're quite solid, so we shouldn't have too many issues with some weird intersections, and maybe that will just work fine. Now this one seems a bit trickier. Let's select a copy of it again. I'll apply the subdivision surface modifier, and we'll go in and try to reduce it again as far as we can. This loop we don't need likely, and on the inside, it's a bit of a, let's just go ahead and start to remove some of these loops. If we can. Definitely a bit more challenging than the previous one. Actually, let's hide these here quickly. They're a bit in the way. So we don't need 2 here probably. We can just go with 1. And now that's strange. Let's delete this and bridge this over instead. And let's just continue otherwise. So I'm really trying to reduce as much as I can, but I will try not to remove any loops along the ring, because I think the resolution needs to be about this much for the curve to be clean and smooth. I'm just going to remove again what we can without losing any necessary details. So sometimes it will mess up like here, so we do have to sometimes go in here and just fix things manually. But again, it's a pretty straightforward task. Nothing too complicated here. Now this part will be a bit tricky. I kind of worried about that from the beginning, but this part would have probably been easier if we just started doing the retopology from scratch, but now that we have kind of taken this approach of modifying what we have, we just have to find a way to work around it a little bit. So I'm just filling in back in all these different areas here. Probably will need to move this a bit to the top. Make sure you use the object axes instead of the global axes when you move things around. And let's delete this as well. Not too sure. Get rid of this one instead. Yeah, see, we might want to actually get rid of these. It's a bit of a complicated operation here, I believe, but I'm trying to get rid of how there was like a diamond shape in here. Just delete this maybe and fill in the rest. This will be the simplest way. I think we have one more situation like this over here. So we'll also delete this and that, and then we'll just fill in all of this. This will make our topology very even and smooth. Except for here, where we'll have to figure something out. Okay, it's the same on the other side. Well, let's leave it for a second. One thing we need to do here is I will select everything from here to here. Since these edges are now of uneven length, we need to fix them up a little bit. So I'll select them like this first of all. Just make sure the selection is correct. And then I'll use the spacing tool here. You can also relax them a little bit. And that should even it out very nicely. And we haven't, we don't have too much distance from the surface as well, so I don't think it will be a lot of a big issue. It should capture the details quite nicely. So yeah, the vertex count is quite low. I think the last thing I want to do maybe is to, well, I'm a bit bothered by this edge here. I think we'll remove this one as well. Just like we did in the back, and otherwise maybe this one too. Actually, we'll have to fix this up either way, so let's delete this point quickly. So let's take a look, what can we do here? I'll fill in this first of all, and then we'll just do this maybe. So that works out very well for us, and probably my last little fix is going to be, I do want this edge to be beveled after all. This will just make it a bit easier for a normal map to work. I guess this part is okay, it's not like a 90 degrees angle there. So yeah, I think this part is pretty good now. It was a bit of a complicated one. I hope you were able to follow with this. This is the last loop that you could remove if you want. Let's do that actually. But we do lose a bit volume there, so I'll try to just inflate it a tiny bit, just to give the mesh a bit of a chance to better capture the object. So that's going to be it. Wow, we actually really well reduced these two parts. So I'm pretty happy with that. So we'll call this ring 01 high, and this is going to be ring 02 high, and we'll name the counterparts to ring 01 low. Oh, actually I got it wrong. So yeah, we have to call these low. These are obviously not high. Low and low. The naming is very important because when we bake it, we'll need to know what is what. I mean, actually, I'm not too sure anymore. I usually use Substance Painter for baking, but since I'm not going to be using that in this series, I'm not too sure if it will be necessary, but I wouldn't be surprised if other tools work in a similar way. So I'm just going to do it as I would usually do it, basically. So here are these two parts done now. Let's take a look quickly at what we have done so far. Can enable the wireframe on these two parts. Alright. Yeah, so pretty good so far. Our vertex count is still very low. You can probably see now why I'm saying that I might want to improve the helmet, because it's very low res after all. Like it would be fine if you look at your character from a distance like this, but I would prefer if we can look at our character from a bit closer. What's going on here, by the way? I recalculated the normals and that fixed that part. So yeah, pretty much this what you see here is roughly what I want to be aiming for. So this is a bit too low in my opinion. Either way, let's go back to our high res and identify a few more parts. So ring high is done. Well, so we have helmet high is done. Otherwise, do we have anything else? Where's the body? Oh, upper body high. Okay, we checked that. Yeah, we forgot the ears, by the way. Still have to remember that, keep that in mind. Let's get rid of the low poly stuff for a second. Keep this fine for now. So, how about we take a look at the arms next? And that's going to be, it's kind of a surprising thing for me that we actually end up being able to use this much, because my usual workflow is to do everything in sculpting, and so there's no topology that you can reuse at all. So I always just start with a new mesh and I place my points and I do topology that way. But in this project, I'm just very surprised that I actually I haven't done that once, except for the body, I believe. So yeah, that's a bit of a surprise for myself, but anyway. So this all will be one object. So what we'll do first of all is, well, let's go one step at a time. Let's make a copy of this. I'll move it down to the low section, and we'll apply the subdivision surface modifier. And I think we applied it on the wrong object. Let's undo this quickly. Let's go to the right object and apply it. So this is what we'll get, and it is of course again too many points that we don't need, so I'll go in and remove all the loops that we won't be needing. I'll leave a little bit of a bevel on these edges, on these like places, because they have such a such a strong angle to it. I think the normal map would struggle to capture it entirely if I made it like a 90-degree turn, very sudden. So I'm just giving it a little bit of a little bit more geometry than it needs, maybe, in these 90-degree turns. It's not something that you have to do, but I prefer it sometimes to do it this way, if I can afford to, of course. But recently, I mean, you can really afford quite a lot. It's not like the game engines will break that easily. Let's delete this. I'm going to use a grid fill for these kind of sections, and we'll just try to line it up with the arm, and that sort of lines up, so that's good. The other side will do the same. Grid fill. Set this to 4. Now we'll just have to make sure that these two sides are lined up in the same direction, and I think that looks good. So yeah, that part is done pretty much. Nothing too complicated. But we'll be probably... I'm actually not too sure. No, actually we'll probably even disconnect it here. I'm really kind of surprised at how this project is going, honestly, because my approach is usually a bit different. I would have connected objects much more together, but in this particular character and at this low level of detail that we're working with, it's actually easier and more beneficial to keep some parts disconnected. That will make baking easier, and it's just easier to make in general, which is a bit unfortunate because it doesn't give you like the full experience of the high-end character modeling workflow. But then, I mean, my goal with this series is to make something that's achievable for beginner artists, so I'm not going like 100% with what you could do on this. Let's apply subdivision surface again. Now, it's going to be a bit tricky. 32 points around. I think that's a bit much, so I'm going to remove... okay, we'll take it step by step then. Let's actually undo this. Wait, did we have... Alright, we had 2 levels of subdivision on this. I'm going to set this to 1 and apply it with 1 subdivision step. So that's now a lot more manageable, and that's also the resolution I was looking for in the first place. So now let's isolate this object and let's go ahead and reduce it. I'm not going to touch this curved part much, because that already has the resolution and the amount of detail that I wanted to have. Instead, I'm going to focus on these transition sections. We can pretty much delete all the detail up to this point, and then just make sure you keep the silhouette basically intact. So we need a couple of these here as they are. Yeah, not much I can reduce here, otherwise yeah, I'll keep it. But here we can again go in and do just a basic grid fill. Let's just make sure that this lines up correctly with the part above, which is a bit tricky. Probably have to set this to 4. Yeah, now it lines up. So that is good as well. Now we just have to look at the bottom half. So here I'm leaving a bit of an edge. Otherwise, here we need a few more to keep the silhouette. We don't need this one. Oh, it seems like these are disconnected parts in first place, so I'm just going to go ahead and yeah, we'll keep these separate too, because we might want to twist these 2 parts quite a bit, and I don't want to deal with any deformation here, so these are going to be separate. So we'll go to this part only. Finally do the same trick down here. Grid fill. Now let's just make sure that it's all lined up correctly. This is correct. It's also correct. Well, then this part is basically done. So that's another block. in this entire thing. Here's the first one, here's the second one. And we need to also separate the high poly mesh now, because if these two parts are separate, then the high poly must also be separate. But this time, this part and this part should be together, because these won't have any deformation between them. They should move together, and so, and actually the fingers as well. I think I want to do all the rest in one part now. So this will be a bit more tricky. Hopefully it works out. You know what, I'm actually not too sure. We could even do the fingers separate. Man, I'm a bit concerned how this character is turning into something that's less and less representative of like a organic character workflow, because in a human, I mean, it's very mechanical. I'm not used to mechanical stuff, to be honest. I haven't done that too much in the past, but it's turning out to be an interesting experience, and I'm just making these decisions based on what I think will be easier and like what I expect the outcome to look like. And I think these decisions will be good in the long run, so I'm just trusting my intuition there, I suppose. Well, let's clean up this part quickly anyway. I can get rid of this one as well. Grid fill 4, and I'll try to line it up with this line here. So this is good. Same thing on the bottom. Just going to remove a few more cuts here. Grid fill. Let's try it again. 4, and it's all lined up. So now we just need to finish cleaning up these unnecessary loops here. There's a couple of them that we don't need. Yeah, let's just go like this. Alright, so this part is also cleaned up. Now we should have 3 of them done. I mean, this part needs to, these two need to join to that though, so now we're going to take a quick look at the high poly model. Let's get rid of the fingers for a second. We don't need this part as well. Basically all I want to do is merge these two together, and since they have the exact same modifiers, except for this being like on a lower level, so let's just turn this up to match the exact settings. Now we can just join these together with Ctrl J, and it should all look the same. So I want these to be together, but that means also that we now have to do a little bit of a couple of changes to the low poly model. So here's the low poly, and you'll see that now doesn't fully cover this area. So now we finally get a chance to do a little bit of proper retopology. Finally. Just hide everything other than that, and we'll get started here. So we just filled this in, but I'm going to remove these faces again so that we have a bit to work with here. And with snap to face on, I'll just go and draw a bit of an edge around where this slightly elevated part begins. Here it's very close to each other, but here we have a bit more of a distance, so I need this loop in here just to make sure. And then you will be able to just select the 2 vertices in the beginning and hit F on these many times, and then we'll just all fill in. Now we'll extrude it, scale it down a bit, and snap it all to the surface. Now we'll need to adjust these as well again. Now here you might not have anything to snap it onto, so you might want to disable your snapping settings and just look manually for the right spot. I'm not going to like model this gap here. It's going to be part of a normal map, and it should work out very well that way. So we don't need to worry about this too much. Here, similar situation, we can't snap it, so we have to manually put it at the right height, roughly here. And there we go. So now we extrude this again, move it closer. Then we have to go manually again. Here we can snap it to the wall, so that's a bit convenient. And I hope you're enjoying watching this. It's kind of funny because I've created my last character modeling series so many years ago at this point, like 5 years ago, 6 years ago or something. And I now remember how I felt very similar when recording those parts. I was just like doubting all the time who would even watch all these tedious, almost grindy tasks that, well, aren't exactly filled with information or anything. But yeah, just part of the process. So there we go. Let's relax it a bit. Yeah, that's good enough. Finally, let's disable snapping. We extrude these up. That matches quite well. We extrude them in next. Let's move these up a little bit so they cover better. And finally, I think I do want to go down here to the edge because I might want to use a different material for this inner sphere. So I'll just keep it separate so that I can apply a different material to it. Now we're going quite high res here, I have to admit. This is a bit too much. So I might just go ahead and delete every second. I hope I'm choosing the right. Actually, no, we should have chosen the other. Because I want to have these lines be continuous. So deleting the other ones here. And now that's tricky too. Just move one into the center. I'll fill this in for now, like so. Let's make this circular. This needs to go somewhere in the center. Yeah. And then finally, the question is how do we connect this? And that's a bit tricky. Might have no choice other than to just go with triangles, which I don't like very much. So is there a better way? Yeah, there's one way I can think of, which is to just connect these with quads like so. To delete this edge, connect quads here. Delete this edge, connect quads here. Delete this edge and do the same on this side. Then finally we fill in the remaining quads on these edges. I'm going to bring this in a little bit though and maybe add another loop around here. I'm not too sure. No, we don't need it. That's a bit too much. So let's just move it sort of in the center. So yeah, that's going to be it. It's ended up a bit more detailed in this inner section, but I think we need it for yeah, just to get the shading right. And also, let me just actually bevel these parts a tiny bit, just. Actually, let's make that bigger. Especially in this section, I wasn't too confident about that. The rest should work out fine. Yeah, the rest is okay. Like even without a normal map, there shouldn't be any too great shading artifacts. If you see really bad shading artifacts, then there's better to fix it a little bit. Let's actually smooth this out a little bit. I don't like how that looked. And we'll just snap it to the surface one more time. Alright, that's going to be that part, and wow, we are again at half an hour of video. Time surely flies by quite fast. So let's take a look at what we created in this part. We also should rename a little bit quickly before we end. These are now only the low resolution meshes. As always, just to make it easier to see it, I'm enabling wireframe in the object property. Object properties. We're now at 5,000 words for everything that you can see here on the screen, so that's still pretty good. And for the names, I mean, I'm really bad with these names. Elbow, elbow low. This can be arm low. Then we'll have hand low. And then we'll make sure that we have the same names for the high resolution counterparts. So this is going to be elbow high. Then we have arm high, and then finally hand high. That should be good. So this is our progress so far, and I think it's coming along quite well. So you can really start to see now how, you know, our game ready mesh is coming together. The shapes are quite nice. It looks not too bad even without normal maps, but with our detail transfer we'll get even smoother surfaces and get crisper details. And even with cell shaded looks, it's still a good idea in my opinion to use normal maps, except for when you do like normal editing. In that case you'll have to use an entirely different approach, but maybe you just have to, you know, do the right things for the right parts. I mean, if it's for animation in first place, then you might want to just stick with subdivision surface techniques in first place. But for games, this is the way to go, I believe. So yeah, there is never one correct answer. But yeah, I hope that it helps you. Anyway, that's going to be it for this video. I hope you enjoyed and learned a lot, and I will see you next time.